I had to first realize what I was doing that was giving you a negative about me, that I didn't love
Perception, yeah.
you or had no care about you. That for me was hard. I'm like, oh, how could that even happen? But I had to look at myself. Well, how have I been responding? How have I been available? How have I nurtured this relationship? Especially we're family, and to me, a family is should be a close relationship. I know it's not for everybody, and I'm still working on some of those areas of my family that have kind of slipped away. But I desire to have that closeness again. So that was the first thing, and that was me, because I get to control how I respond to my family members, the people that God has put around my life, my friends, my neighbors, whatever. So that's just about me. I can't expect everyone else to change so that
Right.
I can like them or interact with them or whatever. So that was the first thing, was figuring out how I was putting off a vibe that was not approachable. And that was hard for me to realize.
Hey everybody, welcome to Splinter Grace. It's Monday.
Monday.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Tina Frank, and I am a conservative, Christian, mature woman most days. And I've learned that I enjoy painting rocks. So
Who'd have thunk?
I know.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Bonnie Violet. I'm a transgender queer spiritual drag artist and a chaplain. And yeah, I did a choreographed dance number, which I didn't know I could do. So, it was interesting.
You're a dancer? Are you a dancer? I think.
Well, it was one of those things. In practice, we did really well, but when we went to actually film it, it was like we each had different moments, but I think it turned out well. I'm excited to see the videos.
So did you do all your filming in one day?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we did a dress rehearsal or a rehearsal on Saturday that we were mostly dressed, and then yesterday we did like the final shoot. So yeah.
Oh wow! So were you guys outside? I can't remember if you said you guys are doing it in the studio or outside.
Yeah, we were outdoors. There was the three of us, and then there were three cameras on us while we were doing the filming as well. So I think it turned out really great. We're excited about it.
Were you guys in that fabulous park in San Francisco?
No, we were at a BART station in Daly City. So we were going for the more parking garage kind of.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we were in a parking garage, kind of an abandoned or an empty parking garage at least.
Oh, that's kind of cool. It sounds like I can't wait to see it. I was watching, I think I texted you, what's it called? Somebody Feed Bill. And he was in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
He was going through all these food places and the park and all that stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness. One, I want to eat there. So next time I come, we are definitely eating some of these places.
Right.
And then he mentioned that the beautiful park, I can't remember the name of it, that you guys have is bigger than Central Park. That's pretty amazing.
I wonder what park that would be. Maybe Buena Vista? I don't know.
But it's like, I think it's the park that we had met in once before. But anyway, it was pretty awesome. And of course, how they do the filming, nothing looks like it did when I was there. So I'm like, wait a second, I missed that.
Right.
So anyway, I'll just have to come back and see you.
Sure.
And experience some of that. So I definitely made a list of those places that I want to eat.
Awesome. How was your weekend? What were you up to?
I had a good weekend. My husband was so excited. He got to go to a car show. Took a couple of the son-in-laws and the grandkids and went to the car show. They had a great time. So that was nice being outside. The weather's really great here right now before it gets too hot. So they had a fun time. And after that, we spent the afternoon over at my daughter's house. It's her birthday. It's been a while since I've celebrated a birthday with one of my adult children. So it was a lot of fun. Had some burgers, went swimming, played badminton. It was fun. We had a great time.
Sounds like
lots of pictures. So
nice. So and it's our final episode. It's not wild.
It is wild. It's like, where'd the last 12 weeks go? Oh my goodness.
And it's not our final just for this season. We're kind of doing these in 12-week portions. So this was our second season. We'll take a little break. We haven't determined how long that will be, but we're going to take a little break. We'll talk about that a little bit. I mean, we could talk about it now, I guess, but we're going to probably just take a little break. And in between seasons, we're also going to post we're going to be on some other podcasts being interviewed. We were interviewed about forgiveness with Bob Kaiser a couple weeks ago. We'll post that. If you folks have an idea of a podcast you think we would be good on, feel free to suggest us to the hosts. Or if you think, and also if you have any ideas for us for next season, we're playing with a lot of different ideas, maybe even having guests, or I don't know. We're just kind of thinking, how can we go to the next level with this? So we'll put some thought into that, and we'd love to hear from you all on what you think as well.
That would be awesome. Yeah. So you got some individual things happening though, don't you? Some other projects you're working on while we're having a break?
Yeah. And if folks are interested too, they could follow some of the work that I'm doing in the meantime. I'm in the middle of doing a workshop called Lace. It's a live stream workshop called Lacing Your Narrative with a Spiritual Thread, where I'm walking people through the process of seeing their understanding of God or their relationship with God, spirituality, all of that throughout their whole life, how it changed, what caused it to change, what it is now, what they want it to be. And I'm going just through this. It's a live stream 8-week process that you can participate live stream, or you can just, participate and start at any time that you want. So it's just kind of an experimental thing to see how it goes. And then I'm working on a trans spirit series where I want to interview trans folks and lace their narrative with the spiritual thread, very much like I do my Dragon Spirituality series. And then I just started another podcast with it's called At the CCC, which
I saw that.
It's a recovery focused podcast where we talk about all types of recovery and how folks recover from whether it's drugs, alcohol, overeating, whether they do 12-step or they do harm reduction, or they, we're really wanting to try to create a space in which there are no outside issues, and a way that we can hopefully create better space for more people in recovery, kind of focus on those things that might separate us, in the hopes that we'll become unified around it.
I enjoyed your first one. Your co-host, Lolo. So funny.
Lulu. Yeah.
Lulu, I'm sorry.
Lulu.
I said the name wrong. Jeez. At least I know what day of the week it is this week.
Right. Yeah. Lulu and Bonnie Violet. So, yeah.
You know what? I should have known that because I call Nevaeh Lulu all the time. And I was like, I'll remember that. Gee, when Christmas. Anyway, it's Monday.
It happens. So, to get into our topic today is God hates, which I know it was kind of like, ouch, just to even say it or think about it. But one of the things that's really been on my mind is, there's the relationship of God hates, God hates fags, God hates gay people, God hates this and that, which has been used in a way to kind of like clobber people and hurt people, I think, or some people have experienced it that way. So I kind of wanted to be able to talk about that a little bit. I know you and I have our own relationship with that sort of phrasing and how it's kind of impacted our thinking, as well as I've been noticing a lot of like just folks trying to, I don't know, there are just some things around calling out other people too about their behavior that I just kind of wanted to talk with you a little bit about, because I feel like sometimes it feels mean-spirited even though it's not. And I think that's also something or it might not be, maybe it is. I don't know.
You never know someone's heart, You
Yeah.
can only guess by how they present the information that they're sharing.
What did you, what was your thought when you got that text? Hey, what do you think about God hates this week's topic?
It's like, what? God doesn't hate anything. It's like, that's a random topic. So I think I texted you back, said, I need to do some research on that. Is that what I said?
You were like, can I let you know tomorrow?
Yeah. It's like, yeah. So I'm like, okay. So I just never think about God hating anything. As I've been a Christian for a long time, and Lord knows I've made my mistakes and still do, but I just never thought about God hating anything.
Yeah, me either. But the God hates message kind of was out and about. I don't feel like it's out there as much as it used to be, but I felt like it was pretty prominent, maybe say 10 years ago. Like it did a lot of damage. Exactly. And I know for me, I kind of got that message, but I had also I'm good with God. Like my relationship with the God of my understanding has been all set for a while. But for whatever reason, I still have my understanding of Christianity does not have that sort of language either. So I was definitely, I found it harmful. But I know you had a response to it too when you started seeing it.
The hate speech?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody likes the hate speech unless you're capitalizing on it, which is unfortunate that people do that. And I don't think God likes all that either. There are some things, though, as we found out as we did some research, because I did do some research, and I found that there are some things listed in the Bible that it says that God hates. And I went further because sometimes I know that words can mean or take on different meaning, but the word is hates, and it is the way kind of hate that we were talking about is hate.
Right.
So those are some things that we can share those things, and in addition to engaging on people's experiences.
Yeah, we would love to hear from folks. So if you have some thoughts on God hates, whether you believe God hates or what you think God hates, or if you just want to talk about it in general, or even just what your thoughts were when you read that or hear that. Well,
I'll just share the passage that I found because I was surprised. You always start with the Google search. God,
I know
when you
messaged me last night, you said, I found it. There's some verses where it says God hates. And I was like, oh, shoot. I was like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah. So I started Google, and then I went to, there's a lot of resources online. So if you're ever looking for something in the Bible, Google's a great resource just to pull up a bunch of scriptures. If you want to go deeper than that, there's a lot of tools out there. One of the ones I like to use is the Blue Letter Bible. One of my friends turned me on to it, and I like it. And what it does is it lets me compare the translations to the Hebrew. So I can actually look up the Hebrew meaning to the words and make sure that something's not being taken out of context, which is what I thought. Hate is pretty aggressive word. So I thought that's got to be dislike, it's got to be frowned upon, whatever. I didn't. So when I looked at it, was actually a hate. So looks like we have a comment. Is it?
You want me to go into it first?
That's up to you. What do you think? Should I read the passage or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Anita Woodward says, good morning. Thanks for joining us too. She said that statement hits me on a personal level. Growing up with close family members always saying things like, God will not love you if you ... or God hates little girls who aren't proper. So many to list. But they used it as a tool to control me with fear. Was not easy growing up with that hanging on me. Hey y'all, it's me again, Bonnie Violet. I just wanted to take a second and thank my Patreon members. Patreon members are folks who contribute on a monthly basis anywhere from $3 to $150 a month to support the work of a queer chaplain. Big shout out to Victoria Thompson, Jason Brandt, Brandon Stanton, Kim Silva, Brandy McCarg, Randy Sandknott, Bob Kaiser, Joey Heckmeister, Violet Rhiannon, Gabriel, Jonathan, Petrick, and Todd Atkins Whitley. Thank you so much for your continued contributions. And if you're interested in joining the Patreon, just check the link in the description. Go to patreon.com/Bonnie Violet. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Yeah. A lot of people grew up with the Word of God being used as a tool to manipulate and to control. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I still see it used in that capacity today.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
It's like the fear of hell or whatever. It's just like, and fear only lasts so long. Because once you go a while without having the impact of it, I don't know, fear just goes away. It's not a healthy or good way, I think, to get a message across, if you will. But
yeah. Fear's not meant. Well, God is not a God of fear. And he doesn't want to be scary. He doesn't want anyone to come to him out of fear. He wants people to come to him out of love. So anytime if anything I'm fearful, I know that's not God, because God is a God of peace.
Well, and God often says, fear not. Or
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
so many times in the Bible, fear not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know if I'm in fear that, there's some sort of like, some sort of like, I'm not really trusting in God.
Right.
There's some part of me that doesn't, has kind of started to take my own will, as they'd call.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily agree. I don't think that my will is any different than God's will. I believe we want the best. We want the same for me. I just don't always know how to do that. I can't usually get that result on my own. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Like they're in alignment. It's not like God has this way, I have this way, and we're fighting over like whose way. It's like we both agree and we're both in alignment, but I might fall short a little bit. But we're like, I feel like we're in the same groove, if you will.
Gotcha. See, and I believe that God has, for me, far more than I can think or imagine. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to stand in the way. So if God's got a plan, that's more than I can think or imagine, knowing that he's a God of love. Man, I want it. I don't want anything that I want. I want everything that he wants for me.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. My big thing with God, I felt like, I first came to the idea of God again, in recovery. Mm-hmm. And I got there out of a state of desperation. Like I got there at a state of like, I needed help. I needed assistance. I didn't know how to get out of my situation. God, G-O-D, gift of desperation, is something they speak of in recovery. Mm-hmm. And a big part of recovery is there's, at least in 12-step, which is what I participate in, there's a spiritual component to it. It is a spiritual program. So if folks aren't open to spirituality, it's probably not a good program for them, but it still might be. But anywho, through that process, I got to see and form and create a God that didn't hate, and a God that was accessible and free and loving and kind and there for my betterment, with love and all that sort of stuff. For whatever reason, I didn't have a God. I didn't see God that way, and I didn't experience God that way until I got into recovery. And then I could really begin to focus on what God was and not what God wasn't. And that helped me, I think, but I think I'm at a point now where it's like, I got God in my life to increase my capacity to be in life well and be in life in the way that I wanted. But I still think from a space of brokenness or emptiness. And I feel like now I really have a desire to have a relationship with God in which I am a whole person I'm a whole being. I don't need God for a crutch. I don't, you know what I mean? It's like, but I have a desire and I want God in my life.
Yeah.
So it's from a state of desire and want versus like need or desperation, which I still believe I need God,
Yeah.
but it's not like this, I don't know, like this, I need it, it's more of like, I want it. There's more of a desire for it.
Yeah. You want to have a relationship, I think is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. Sorry, that's nothing to do with hate, but I think it does talk a little bit about how to kind of having to have what that hate did and how it played out in my life. And once I was able to kind of like work through that, I'm starting to have a different result. So what does it say is it Proverbs?
Yep. Proverbs. I'm going to read it right out of my Bible because I don't have it memorized, y'all. So Proverbs 6 is where I'm reading from. And
it's the Old Testament for folks who might not be aware.
Yep. And it's found right after the Psalms, if you're thumbing through your Bible. And the reference that I had started at verse 16 through verse 19. And I'm going to read it. Mine is a New American Standard. I did also looked it up in the King James Version, the New King James. And again, if you go out onto that resource, you can see it, the Hebrew, and it'll take you all the places where it's at. So, all right. So it says, there are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a man who stirs up dissension among brothers. So that's quite the list.
Right. It's quite the wording too.
Yeah, it is. And I know I'm a word look. I like to look stuff up because I think I have an idea of what some of those things mean, but I really want to understand what it says. And so for me, I start with Webster first, and then I kind of go from there. I did make some notes, and I did look up some other ideas that people had of what those words meant. So if there's any discussion we want to have about any of them, I'll share my thoughts and someone else's thoughts so that you don't have to take mine as gospel.
Well, and one of the things that I was thinking, and I was thinking hate, like I feel like that's got lost in translation somehow, or it's gotten like generalized or simplified maybe. Because like the word love, in my understanding in the Bible, there are lots of forms of love. But it's all kind of lumped in just love, right? So I wondered if there was kind of like, if you will, levels of hate, if you will, or like things that were, like a different type of hate, I guess, versus, and so it got translated somewhere differently.
I think what's changed is our tolerance for it. Our tolerance for it. I remember growing up, Mom used to tell me all the time, don't you use the word hate. That's a bad word. That's just like those other cuss words, but we'd go to school and we'd use it. And other kids said, I hate you, whatever. But I think it's just become something that we've been desensitized to, unless it's to some extreme where we've got someone really focusing on it. And so that it gets attention. But I think sometimes when we focus, we're just spreading more hate. It's like, okay, wait a second. We got to take a step back and just and not get caught up in all that. So I think we've been desensitized to it, just like lots of other things that we've been desensitized to.
As in, we are calloused to hate, or that we label a lot of things hate that might not be.
Both, I think. I think we can be so callous. Like, I'm just gonna give you an example. Y'all can be mad at me if you want to, but it's the truth, and we'll just work through it, or you'll have to pray for me, or whatever it is. I don't want to have a discussion because I already know. So when I start to hear someone spewing about how much they're hated or whatever, and it's all over the media, I have to tell you, I'm just like, roll my eyes. So I've been desensitized to what's happening, because it's every time I turn around. Being in the industry that I was accused so many times of being hateful and doing things because I hated people and all of those things. And I don't know if it was because I was white. I don't know if it was because I was a woman. I don't know if it was because I was the manager. I have no idea why it was. And I feel bad for all those folks that they would feel that way, but it desensitized me so that I just like, oh, I don't even want to hear it. You know what I mean? And then I think
like
as kids, we make it flippant. Go ahead.
Sorry. So it's like an extreme, that it's kind of such an extreme kind of thing that you're like, whoa, that's not me. So it doesn't even make you open to maybe like, is there something I'm doing, like because it's so extreme. It's like, I know I don't hate.
Yeah. Or because it's like, I hear it everywhere. Every time I turn around, there's a, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I don't know if it's, I don't want to deal with it. I don't know if I just don't care. I do care. But when I want to care about something that I can make a difference in. And so anyway, I think there's a big, that's just my opinion. So it doesn't have to be right. It's just my opinion. And I'm trying to not be insensitive to things and try to hear things and gain understanding those things so I can make quality decisions and move in love and kindness and whatever I need to do. But I think there's a lot of people that are like me, or even people not like me, that have been desensitized. I don't know how else to describe it.
Well, and I wonder if there's like, I don't know, it feels like, in so many other words and so many other experiences, there's kind of levels, or there's like gray area, if you will.
Okay.
Whereas I feel like hate just feels like it's just is what it is, like period.
Done. End of discussion.
Exactly. So I think, but maybe it would be helpful to realize that there are, I don't know, that there are like levels of hate. It just seems so interesting to think of it that way. Landa Lakes is saying, I think in some things hate is overused. Then there are real elements. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think those real elements get lost in all of that overuse. And so people just don't even want to engage. Yeah.
It's almost like I think because it is just like a word that's like, it's just the one word and that's it. I think if we were able to come up with or speak more specifically, maybe like hate feels like maybe like a general term, if you will, but if we could be more specific about the experience or what that is, maybe that would, I don't know, maybe that would be helpful, but I do think it is a little overused. But again, I think it's because it's like kind of a black and white term. It's not.
It is.
Or at least our understanding maybe is.
Maybe.
So, did you want to go a little bit further with what those?
Yeah. So I think all the Bible is inspired. I just want to say that out the gate. But I do think there's a law on the Old Testament side, and there's a fulfillment of that law on the New Testament side. So the things that God hates, when I was reading this, these are things I already know that God doesn't want me to engage in.
Right.
But I don't think when God hates that he doesn't love me anymore. And so I think when we look at this word hate, I think people read this and think that, okay, well, if God hates this, he can't love. Right. But Jesus filled in that space. We have to remember. And so there's forgiveness. And we talked about that a lot when we were talking with Bob, and we talked about that a lot here also. But so in the forgiveness aspect, there's not condemnation in this. These are things that God still wants us to strive for. And I don't know if you guys define these the same way that I did, but do we want to talk about how we define these, or is there even any reason to do that? Because I read it, so.
Yeah, I guess I have a thought about that too. So, well, one, it's like God is love. Can you love and hate the same thing at the same time?
I think we can. It can grieve our spirit. I can love the person, but I can hate what they're doing. And I think that's how God is. I think God loves us, and he still has a plan for us, but he doesn't always enjoy the things that we participate in or do, especially if it's and I feel designed for us.
I guess I feel like the God of my understanding would get all of this They would understand why we do what we do and why things are happening the way that they're happening. And because of that, all God could have is compassion and understanding and love. Like, so, because I feel like the way that we remove hate sometimes, or way I get rid of hate, I hate. I don't even think like me. I feel like I don't have hate in me because I think maybe because my thinking of it is so like severe. I don't remember where I was going to go with that.
I hate it when that happens.
Hate it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll come back to me. Maybe I didn't need to go there.
But so I do you think God disciplines us? I'm just going back to some of the things that you were saying.
I don't.
That he's just gonna, okay, whatever you want to do is fine with me. So just go for it. I just love you, whatever.
I don't feel like, I feel like, no, I don't know. I just don't know that I feel like God.
Have you ever thought about why God created you?
I don't know. Maybe a little bit.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I feel like God is still creating me. So I feel like I'm still in that process of creation.
I agree with you. So, I don't mean to be. I just want to. Because all the time, Lord, why did you create me? I know there's a purpose. I believe that God created me for a purpose, and so part of that discovery and becoming who I am, I need some guidance from God. And so I think God, I don't know if discipline was the right word, but God guides me by telling me, no, that's not where it's good. That's not going to take you where you want me to go. No, that's not going to take you to what I have purposed for you and the plan that I have for you. And if I believe, and I do believe, because Ephesians says so, that if God wants to do something in my life more than I can think or imagine, I want to try to do my best to do those things that he calls me to do and moves me around to do, even though they're not comfortable for me.
Right.
It's easy for me to stay in my one little corner and do nothing. I could not leave my house every day, be just fine, have all the groceries I want, have all the air conditioning I need, watch all the stuff I want on TV, and have no impact on anybody and be just fine. But that's not who God created me to be. He'll love me if I choose to do that. But he's going to give opportunity for me to get out of the house and to talk to my neighbor. He may even have my neighbor knock on my door. And I can choose to do it or not do it. But I feel like there's a guiding and even a disciplining. If I'm out over here doing something crazy, I think God will do some things to call me back and say, oh, don't do that. That's not good for you. That's not going to benefit you to move you to where I have you to be. So I mean, it's a good conversation we can have offline if you want some time. But
no, I understand what you're saying, like totally. And part of it is just like what is God and what isn't God is, you know what I mean? It's like it kind of gets down to all that. Adam says that I think this was in response to, does God discipline us? No, God gives us choices. Which I think isn't contrary to what you're saying. I think it's just a different way of
saying it.
Of saying it. Yeah. Because I think oftentimes, because if you think about either pain or discomfort or even like, that oftentimes trigger change, like if God created everything and pain is part of that, God doesn't put you in pain, but you can be in pain, right? And that pain then, I think, so that's for me, I feel like the utilization of God helps me through that pain and to heal from that pain and to hopefully not need to be in that pain again. If that makes sense. So I feel like God is like that tool that gets you through that. I don't think that God like said, boom, you're in pain, so that I can.
God doesn't inflict pain at all.
Exactly. It's just something that happens.
It's like Adam said, it's a choice that we make. So God allows us to walk through the consequences of the decisions that we make. And he's just always right there with us, like you just said.
Gotcha. And Anita says, forgiveness saved me from hate. Once I learned that God didn't hate me, I was able to forgive myself. And from then on, I never had that hate in my heart.
That's awesome.
Very well
That's
said.
a wonderful testimony. Yeah.
It made me think of what I was starting to say earlier. So if there was something that I did hate or something that I was really unhappy with, the more I could come to understand that situation, whether it's the person, the overall circumstance, all that sort of stuff, then I can let go of some of that hate, right? Where I think that's maybe where forgiveness comes into play, or compassion, or understanding, healing, that sort of thing.
Awesome. Great comments, you guys. Thanks so much for chiming in.
And then Adam says, Bonnie has served others in many ways and continue to.
Yes, we do.
Thanks for that encouragement, Adam. Some days it's
harder than others, huh?
Yeah. I just know I needed to hear that today in particular. So whatever drew you to say that, Adam, thank you.
It's very much appreciated.
Right. So what does God dislike? Hate, according to Proverbs. Did you want to explain one of those a little bit more? I mean, a lot of it had to do with like lying, killing,
devising wicked schemes. That's a good conversation.
Cheating and stealing.
Quick to rush into evil. That's a conversation starter. False witness who pours out lies. And a man who stirs up dissension among believers. So there's a broad
brush there. Are still pretty vague, kind of like it's still kind of left up to interpretation.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on any of those? If not, it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of like the common sense of it all to some degree. Like, I don't think any of it's surprising as far as like, if God hated, that those would be things that God hated, and I think the quick to evil would be this idea, probably would be the lack of connection with God, which I think God probably wouldn't be happy with that, because I don't think evil is something that just, I don't know. I think it takes, I don't know.
I think that's good. Pushing into evil, an opportunity to continue to do the things that we know we shouldn't be doing. I think that is.
Yeah. And Adam says God competes with evil. Love eventually prevails.
Amen.
So I've heard you say that a lot too. Like it's not our battle, it's God's battle. You've said that a lot, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Thank goodness it's not my battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, Adam. Thanks for that. So one of the ones that I know that I still struggle with is that I guess it's the wicked schemes. I don't know, but I still sometimes have negative thoughts. I still sometimes go into a situation thinking about how it can benefit me and not necessarily everybody in the group. And so that's something I've been working on, because I've always been, one of my core values for my personal life is to never engage in something that isn't a win for every participant. Because if it's not a win for me, it's not, I mean, if it's not a win for you, it shouldn't be a win for me.
Right.
With that. So it's helped me a lot to remember that. It's one of those little cliches that I keep in my mind, or one of those conversation things that we had talked about last week. But I struggle with that still, because I still want things to work out well for me.
Right. Well, but it does seem like in God's understanding, though, it all makes sense. Like I know for us, it's like, what the heck?
Yeah. And, God's not going to condemn me for being self-serving above someone else. He certainly is not. He's going to say, okay, honey, we got to work on this and work through that work through that together so that I can renew and not, because I don't want to do anything, not intentionally. But I think we have that defense mode that we want to be in. You know, if we both need that $10 and I need that $10 more than you need that $10, you know,
Right.
so what can I do to convince that person to give me that $10 and you not that $10, rather than how do we come together and each get $5? Then we
Right.
both have something instead of one of us having something and one of us having nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those are things that I still work on. And I feel like those are the kinds of things, and some of these are black and white, but these are things that God is talking about, and falls under some of those evil ways and some of those self-serving ideas and prideful, haughty things, you know?
Yeah. Adam says we can take too much on sometimes. And I think that's like in response to what God can do and what we can do, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I don't know, for me, I have a really hard time to personify God. And the way that I say that is for like God to have emotions, for God to have things like us. That to me, it feels like that falls short. Like, I feel like there's like God has an understanding and a way of being and a way of existing that might not have our vocabulary. Like, you know what I mean? Like it might, I don't think it's personified. So, you know, like I think to personify God is to limit God. I understand that's how we can kind of understand God, and that's how we translate God in our human life, if you will. But I just feel like God is beyond that.
So this is a personal question, so choose not to answer it if you don't want to, but I'm asking because I'm curious. So how do you see the role of God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit then?
Well, I think, you know, for me, like, I think that, well, I guess you said God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. So I think Jesus is like, for me, I feel like that's an example of how humans can live out their life in a way in which God intended, maybe, or would get us a good experience, maybe. I believe the Holy Spirit is that which connects us. That's what's in between us. That's what, you know, it's the essence. It's the thing that breathes life into us. It's the thing that animates us and moves us through life. You know, it's like it's kind of like the strings on a puppet. And not that not that God is a puppeteer, but just in that sense of like being lifted and elevated by the Spirit. So I think the Spirit is what moves through us and around us and in us.
But where does that Spirit come from?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, like, I mean, I could call it God. I could say, yeah, it's God, or it's, you know, it's how God has action or moves. You know what I mean? Like, it's the movement of God, the work of God, if you will. Whereas like God to me feels more grounded, more
tangible,
more stuck in place. If that makes sense. Yeah.
All right, that's cool. That's interesting. I was just curious because we had never really talked about this before.
Yeah. So, well, and you know, I'm in such a, I've been in this space too, where like, because I've been through my Lacing Your Narrative through like with a Spiritual Thread workshop series, I've been really spending a lot of time thinking about all these little things. And the more that I think about all of the little specifics and the details, then the further I want to, like, I don't say I want to get further from God, but things start to fall apart when I look too close. Like, it's better. Like, for me, I feel like I complicate it. I make it.
Oh, that I can agree with. I complicate stuff.
So my understanding complicates it and creates it and puts it in a way in which it's like too much. Whereas if I just have a bigger picture, say God is love, you know, that's a bigger picture, right? That's like God is love, and that plays out in a lot of ways. But if I say like, well, God didn't love when this happened, or where was God's love in this and that, you know, then like, to me, I feel like then that's when it's like, well,
yeah,
you know,
I agree with that.
That's where it gets messy. I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Those are those moments where you have to just stand on the truth that God is love, even though it doesn't feel like love to you, the way
Mhm.
we want to engage in love. We have an idea of how we want to engage in love. And when it doesn't feel like that, we try to think that God doesn't love us or whoever doesn't love us, meaning the
Right.
person. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I think, I think there's oftentimes you can, like I was watching something recently where, I think there are things that happen in life that cause us to really question our understanding of God and life and spirituality. And sometimes that could be like a death of a loved one that, like around some sort of pain or whatever, we're like, how could God be in this? Or how can God be a part of this?
Right.
And we believed maybe in God's world, or in a world in which God was in control, these sorts of things wouldn't happen. And so then those things happen, and then we don't believe that God exists anymore, potentially, rather than changing our understanding of all that so that there is still God. And you know what I mean?
I think I know what you're trying to say. Yeah. God is not in everybody's world. So God's a gentleman. And unless we ask him to participate in our lives, he's not going to.
There's consent, yes.
So, there are people that are choosing to not have God in their world. He's not there because they don't want him there.
Mm.
So God just doesn't control the world because he can. He only wants to be a part of the world of those who want him to be.
Mm.
And that's one thing I love about God. He's a gentleman. He doesn't force his way into my life and dictate the life that he wants me to have. He allows me to settle outside of his will. He allows me to find grace and mercy when I make a mistake. Although these are things that he doesn't enjoy or he hates or he doesn't even hoping I don't experience in my life, he covers it because he is love and wants to draw me close. So I have God in my life. And so I know no matter what happens, I know God is there, but there are folks that are living in this world without God in it. And it's sad because you're right. They haven't even allowed God to be a part of their world, but here God has to take the blame for everything that's happening to them when they've not even allowed him to be a part of what's going on, so that he couldn't participate and bring comfort, couldn't participate and bring understanding or protection or whatever that looks like.
Yeah. I think one of the magics about my experience with God, though, is God can exist in your past. Like you can see God, like God can become part of your past in a way that changes it, I guess. And then in some ways it's like God was there all along, but not really until you, like you said, consented or saw or chose it to see it. So I definitely think that that's the magic. And I think that's the idea of the story of the prodigal son, right? Where the, I don't know, where the kid that was there all the time doing all the work, like to get from his father what was his or whatever. And then the other one goes away and just does all crazy and whatever, and then comes back and still gets all the goods. Like God comes into our life when God comes into our lives. And for some of us, it's at different stages of our life. And I guess how we experience that might be different. But in the end, do we all still get the goods, so to speak?
Yeah, it depends on what good
we're working toward, like heaven,
right,
I guess.
Right. So, what good? So that example that you gave is a great example. But the son that stayed home didn't have the goods, because remember, he didn't even ask if he could kill a calf. And his father said, "You could have done this whenever you wanted to."
Right.
But he didn't ask. He harbored all this frustration and all this whatever towards his brother, and he didn't have the goods. He was miserable. He was jealous. He was overworked. He only had eyes for the tangible goods, so he didn't get the goods. He may have had some money,
right? Yeah, I think that's just what
yeah. So yeah, there's. I guess we have to each decide I don't want to be, what kind of a life we want to live. And does it want to be a life full of pursuing the things that the world has to offer? Or do we truly believe that there's something after that and we're going to pursue that? And I believe that there is something after, and I do want to pursue eternity and not just what's available to me in the world. When I read my Bible, it says all this stuff's going to pass away. And I don't want my life, I don't want to think that the day I'm in the ground, that's it.
Right.
That's it. Why live then? If my only outcome of my life is to take some fun pictures and to have someone tell a funny story about me and then get eaten by worms in the dirt, that's not enough for me.
Yeah, you want something more. I think most of us do.
Yeah.
Just to get to a couple of the comments that we haven't to yet.
Sorry.
That's okay. No. Cindy says, it seems a lot of those things that God hates come alongside the 10 Commandments.
Mm-hmm. Sure do.
And then Adam says we should be focused on the goods we have or can work towards, not what we are going to get at the end of life. What is it? We shouldn't be focused on the goods we have or can work towards, not what we are going to get at the end of life. We need to make life possible and positive in the here and now. Yep.
That's a good thought.
That's a lot of what we just said with when you were re-explaining the the prodigal son story. I think that idea.
All those things. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
All those things God's already provided for us. So my hope is eternity. So I don't have to worry about all those things that we worry about all the time because God says He's already covered it. Philippians says that He's provided, and in every interpretation I've ever looked at the Bible back into the Hebrew, provided is past tense. He has provided everything that we need according to His riches and glory, not mine, His. So if I believe that as a Christian, and I do, I identify as a Christian, so I'm a Christian. I choose to believe that. I believe that. So I want to live my life like that. So that doesn't mean I'm going to eat beef Wellington every day of my life.
Right.
But I know that I'm going to have what I need to eat. I know that I'm going to have what I need to wear. I know that I'm going to have what I need to get where I need to go so that I can fulfill the purpose that God has for my life, which may be way different than the purpose. I had never envisioned myself in a situation like this with you, Bonnie. Never. Was this even on my radar? So I believe this is something that God had intended for us, even though it wasn't on my radar. It wasn't something that I pursued, wasn't something I tried to make happen or anything like that. I'm blessed that you would include me, but it was not something that was on my radar.
Yeah. And for me, I definitely have an understanding of like, that's when like, oh, that's what sometimes I want to label God. It's like when things add up and make sense in a way that I couldn't have manufactured.
Yes.
Or came up with, then I'm like, oh, that's God. Like,
yep.
just
I think that's definitely a good way to look at it.
You know, like that's a God thing. So in recovery, a lot of people call that a God shot.
That's awesome.
So Adam also says, I can't comprehend what it means to die and what I'm going to get in the next life. I want to make what I have now good. I can't control what is next. I think that's definitely that's how I live.
Yeah. I think making what you have now good is amazing. And if you read your Bible that talks about what eternity looks like, but that said, God already died, so our inheritance is available to us today. And so by understanding God's concepts now, that peace that comes knowing that those are things that I don't have to fret about, and I just have to work on me. I just need to have a kind, loving heart. I need to desire to serve the people that God's put around me, to be available to walk through the doors that He's opened me, and knowing that I don't own anything. Everything tangible that I have is not mine. It's God's. And so if I'm willing to use it to be kind and loving and for those purposes, I think that's what our life is about. And so, yeah, Adam, I think understanding and utilizing your things for good now is great. But there's hope for eternity. And even if you read it, it'll explain some of it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I
And
think,
go ahead.
yeah, I know I've said that. I know I've said this a lot of times, but I think that, like, I know I have an experience with God. I know I have a connection with God. I know, I know, I know some shit, right? But,
Are we gonna
but
have
what,
to click that button now because you said that?
right, I said
Oh no.
fags earlier, so I think that's
Oh, we had to click that button anyway.
one of those buttons. Yes, for the podcast.
Okay.
Yes,
Jeez.
sorry. Some people would probably just put an E on us just because I'm in drag. So who
That's
knows?
about them.
Right, yeah. Um, yeah, so I don't remember where I was going with all
Oh, I'm
that.
sorry.
Oh,
I
I'm
didn't
just
mean
saying, like, I know some, yeah, it's like I have an experience with God, and a lot of people I know have had this experience that they often label it God. They might call it other things. I think words they can be very personal, and our understanding of words are also very different too. So what I struggle to is find the words that speak fully to that experience and that knowing that has been in me, you know, since I can't even remember.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah, and so I think that's why, because of that sort of thing, I know that I have a hard time being a part of anything. I can pick it apart and I can find something wrong to cause me to not be a part of it. That's why I'm not. That's why I have a hard time in relationships with people, and I have a hard time joining things. And like I know that that is my limitation, and it causes discomfort at times. But there's also a lot of benefit that I get from having that sort of process too, in the sense of there's an expansion that happens for me. I think that'll get me to that space of where, I don't know, that space of heaven, if you will. Adam says Jesus provided a clean slate for all the many questions we had before Jesus, and who believes in Jesus will have eternal life.
That's true.
That's what the Bible says.
It has nothing to do with anything else.
Right?
That's right.
We have 5 minutes, so we're like done.
Oh wow.
We are done with season 2.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I just want to say thank you to Cindy and Adam, and there was Linda. Yes, for
Hicks was here earlier,
engaging with us, because that definitely helped with the conversation. I enjoyed the conversation very much.
Right? We're like, yay, God hates talk. Yeah, I think it was a good starting point. I really, I so love that I have you in my life, Tina.
Oh, I feel the same way.
For this, this podcast is beautiful and wonderful, but the conversations that we have outside of this and the way that you show up for me is just, I cannot put it into words how much I appreciate you, and I feel you with me. I feel your love with me, and not any sort of judgment or I don't know. I just want you to know that I feel it and I appreciate it, and I'm glad that I have it in my life.
Well, thanks for sharing that with me, because that's the desire of my heart, is to just love you and to give you space to be the amazing person that God created you to be. So that's the desire of my heart. So I'm grateful that we're on this journey together, because like I said, it was not on my radar.
Right.
So, but I'm grateful, and I'll be here as long as you want me to be, or we'll see what God does.
Right.
That's it. So real quick, I know we got to go because you don't like to edit, but don't forget, you can find Bonnie on some of her other platforms as a queer chaplain, and there's a lot of great stuff out there under there. You should check that out. I started a new project called I Identify as Christian, It's just coming up, so bear with me, but engage with me there. It's a small project I'm working on now. I'm going to be a video series. I've got a Facebook persona. You can encourage me there, follow me there, listen to all my random crazy thoughts there if you'd like, and hopefully have some conversations with me there as well so that you can get to know each one of us a little bit more before our next season starts. So happy Monday, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, and one quick message from another favorite person. I always love hearing from her.
Oh, our cousin.
Named Tina. Yes. Yeah. Tina says, thank you for having the conversation. Many need this, and I hope they have been given the opportunity to listen and or participate. Thank you all so much. We look forward to seeing you next season.
Yeah.
And I guess be well and God bless, maybe.
Yep.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you, everybody.
I don't want to go.
I know.
Splintered Grace Podcast is brought to you by A Queer Chaplain. Follow us on all of our social medias, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at A Queer Chaplain. Listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe, comment, like, and share. Feel free to tip us at Venmo, Bonnie Violet, and support monthly on Patreon. The song is original by Steven Sandnoff, The Chasm Between Us. Rest in peace, Steven. Hey, how's it going? Bonnie Violet here. I'm a trans femme, genderqueer, spiritual drag artist, and digital chaplain. And in case you didn't know, I could really use your support. Engage, rate, subscribe, follow, comment, share this episode, book me to keynote, panel, guest on your show, or officiate your wedding or memorial, in or out of drag, collaborate, join the team, be a guest, make a pitch, sponsor an episode, join my Patreon, send me a tip on Venmo or PayPal. Just do something. Thank you so much for your continued support. Check out the links in the description.